Well, I am Dr. Reba Haley. I am the therapist and a pastor and the author of Understanding Mental Health from a Christian and Therapeutic Perspective. I am a guest on Predators in the Pulpit. I've been invited to talk about the predatory behavior of pastors and ministers and uh, people in the clergy. And to give you just a little background of my why they felt I was qualified enough to discuss this topic is that my husband is a bishop. I am an ordained minister. I am also a licensed clinical therapist. I'm also a pastoral counselor, licensed and certified in temperament counseling, and I have experience in counseling and helping families process um, situations and things that occur to them and help them deal with trauma. So I've been invited to be a guest on Predators in the Pulpit. And so just to give an analytical background of a situation that was brought to my attention, and I brought it to other pastors and clergy's attention so we could talk about it in this podcast and on this YouTube channel. As again I say, please like and subscribe and share for their channel, as well as go to my channel, Dr. Reba Haley Therapist. I talk about relationships and marriage and mental health and traumas and these kinds of things on my own personal channel. But I'm a guest on this channel for them. Isn't that right? Yes, that is right. All right, I'm going to be addressing a situation that was brought to my attention. It was brought to my attention that I received an email from a Tampa pastor uh, and from no, I'm sorry, I received an email from a husband. Is that right? I received an email from a husband, a Tampa pastor's who was a member of this church. I received an email from this husband of a about a situation that occurred in a church in which he was a part of, and what happened in his experience with his wife and this male pastor. I'm going to just give you a little bit of scenario, but we're just going to talk about the situation, and we hope that that this will bring healing and to the family as well as we discuss this topic. This family was a member of this church, so I have this email. I have the emails were sent to me. The receipts were sent to me. Telephone logs indicating what this pastor was doing to this husband's wife, secretly without this husband's knowledge. Uh, and to the place that the wife felt led to disclose this after the trauma of almost divorcing her husband because of the secrecy uh, with this inappropriate sexual, emotional relationship with the pastor. The title of this is Predators in the Pulpit. So I'm a guest and I'm going to do an analytical behavior of this pastor's inappropriate behavior with this married female pastor, this married woman, as well as he was married and he was the pastor. He was their pastor as well. So I'm going to be talking about that. Addressing the situation where a married pastor to church leaders is involved in inappropriate relationships with church members is a complex and such sensitive situation that I don't take lightly because I am an ordained minister. I do believe we need to operate in integrity as ministers. But this was brought to my attention. I did receive this email from this Tampa pastor. So here's some, I want to talk about just acknowledging the breach of trust with this Tampa pastor. What we have found was that uh, it indicated that there were inappropriate telephone conversations in which the pastor wanted to meet with this married member of his church to engage, from what she indicated, in a sexual relationship with him. However, the it continued for months and months, where he was secretly calling her through Google, isn't it Google?
Google Voice.
Google Voice, thank you. This is my assistant. We are talking about Google Voice. They were having inappropriate relationships, trying to conceal and maintain. He was, I'm sure, trying to make sure that his wife did not find out he was calling or emailing or calling this married woman who was married uh, and having these Zoom or
Skype.
Skype kind of sexual, um, what are we calling it? Sexual
Meetings.
meetings and encounters that could, uh, which could involve uh, her. This is such a. We're going to talk about this, but it involved her uh, stimulating her genitalia,
Sexually exploiting herself
sexually exploiting herself and her
publicly.
genitalia while on this visual Skype or Zoom kind of or Google kind of environment in which the pastor was observing this kind of um, this kind of sexual exploitation of her in his viewing. Uh, so this continued for months until it became too unbearable for her, and she went to tell her husband that she was having this encounter with this Tampa pastor. Uh, the husband sent me the email. He sent me the receipts of all of the voice messages that all of the receipts of all of the voicemails and all of the conversations, the late night, the times, her telephone number, his telephone number, as to how often they were calling, different times of night, different times of days. He was calling the husband, and this, and we'll go through this. I don't know if I'll be a guest back on their show, but I'm sure if they need me, I will. But the husband wrote a letter to members of a clergy, and I'm a therapist, so I would assume I was in that because of that. But I received the letter, and I requested a meeting with this Tampa pastor, who declined my request to meet to discuss this disturbing letter that I received from this husband regarding this pastor's inappropriate relationship with the female congregant of his church who was married. Uh, the pastor, this Tampa pastor, denied my request to meet with me and this family to try to bring some healing and some resolution to this inappropriate relationship. The husband, in turn, had emailed within the context of his email indicated to in the letter he sent to me, and letter other people also have received this as well, and they're on this email chain that he agreed to he wanted to meet with the pastor to discuss his inappropriate relationship, and he petitioned, requested, and asked the pastor to repent and to confess that he had done this inappropriate, had this inappropriate relationship with this man's wife. The pastor, in turn, according to the email that we have, indicated that he was willing to fight the husband, uh, uh, and he was willing to fight the husband, and he was not willing at that time to repent. And so the husband, in turn, sent because the pastor refused to repent and refused to meet with the husband and the wife to discuss this, as the husband therefore took it upon himself to send me the email with the documentation and the receipts to support what had happened to his wife. I'm going to talk about it from that part, and it's more to it, but that's the gist of what has happened, and I'm going to talk about it's like a 12-page letter with the receipts. But I want to talk about that is what has occurred thus far. It is deeply distressing when we have to report inappropriate behavior in the pulpit, in a church setting, especially involving trusted leaders. When I talk about the book, I talk about understanding mental health from a Christian perspective. And I want to help us understand that predators in the pulpit and help us to understand what predatory behavior really does look like. All right. Predatory behavior can serve as an early indicator that someone might be at risk of engaging in problematic or harmful behavior. uh, One thinks and one believes, and I talk about this in my book on mental health, even though you are a pastor and even though you are a leader, it does not mean that you don't have demons and unhealthy behaviors and things that have occurred to you that cause you to want to act inappropriately to church members. Because someone is called to, or because someone answers a call, or because someone feels they're called to the office of pastor, uh, doesn't mean that they will act appropriately. They should, but unfortunately, when we deal with people with human behaviors, we understand that they don't. And so, when I talk about predatory behavior, and I talk about this in the book, it indicates underlying psychological issues with predators, because we're talking about predators in the pulpit, and I want to talk about that. When you see predators, there's an underlying psychological issue of situational risk. When I analyze and I do an analytical study in my book regarding different types of biblical scenarios, as well as I'll do it with this, when I talk about what kind of pastor would engage in inappropriate kind of observant sexual. This is so challenging. Excuse me. It's just so heartbreaking. What kind of pastor would want to watch someone on a screen fondle her genitalias while he's on the other end engaging in sexual things with his genitalias? And I'm trying to be as kind as I can. This is very challenging for me, being a member of the body of Christ. We find that psychologically that there is something psychologically there's a psychological issue with an individual that does this secretly to not only the members of his church, but could be doing it with other men. Or if you have the secrecy, then you therefore could engage in other sexual, you could have other sexual appetites, which means you could engage in male on male relationships. If you could be engaged in pornography, um, if you have that kind of sexual appetite where you're willing to look at a screen and to watch someone engage in their to touch, fondle their genitalias while you're on the other end having some kind of uh, sexual stimulation from that observation, would mean that you have some sexual issues. It could be a sexual disorder. Uh, so the what we look at when I think about analyzing just the behavior of this pastor, or anyone who has these kind of sexual disorders, the inconsistent behaviors and mood swings. So now you're addicted, because the behavior appears to be an addictive behavior in which this Tampa pastor, was continuing to secretly try to meet with this individual, but they never did. From what she indicated, they never actually entered into a sexual relationship, but it was through a screen, which says to me you are therefore, that pastor therefore very possibly could be addicted to pornography. If you are watching someone engage in that through a screen, then you very likely have some pornography issues that you watch, sexual pornography. So, because the increased secrecy and the privacy is a sudden increase in secret behaviors, such as hidden text messages, hidden phone calls. This is why the Google Voice was so prevalent in this scenario, in this situation, in this narrative, to hide the secrecy from his wife as well as from her husband. Because when you are dealing with deceptive practices, the only thing you can do is to try to cover your tracks and maintain secrecy. It can be indicating that therefore that you have not set up any boundaries, and some things have just not been off limits to you. But because of the addiction to this sexual disorder, and it definitely is a sexual disorder, whether it's pornography or it's or another type of sexual disorder, it is clearly a sexual disorder and has a mental health component. Now, the frequency of this letter, when I have analyzed this letter, the frequency of their Google Voice messages indicates he was definitely trying to justify the questionable behavior by developing the secrecy. That's very clear. What was surprising, I'm sure, to this pastor is that the wife told her husband and confessed, and I'm grateful that years they have now in counseling, and they've been through counseling, and they're working on restoring their marriage. It can be indicated that the tendency to avoid the responsibility and willingness to push these boundaries in other areas. So he did everything within his ability to hide the secrecy and to avoid being being discovered that he was having this inappropriate sexual relationship with the member of his church who was married. The deceptive and manipulative practices could have led this young woman to a divorce. But she in turn did the opposite, which was she told her husband. And her husband in turn emailed the pastor, and I received this letter with other people as well. Let's talk about that. In the psychological terms, certain behaviors can be potential predictors of someone likely to engage in not only inappropriate sexual relationships, but harmful behaviors as well. These predictors can vary on personality. This pastor apparently has not dealt with some, and very well, when we find this to be these kind of secrecies and manipulations and these kind of behaviors, it is usually some, as I talk about in my book, something has happened in your family. You have been sexually abused, sexually fondled, sexually sodomized, you've been abandoned, you've been rejected, you've been adopted. There is something that has happened to you, because hurt people hurt other people. Jesus can save your soul, but you'll have to work on your behavior. Right? Mm-hmm. So Jesus can save you, but you still have to work on your unhealthy behavior. And I talk about that, and that's a mental health issue. Rather, addiction, I'm an addiction therapist. So if if this pastor is operating this kind of predatory behavior, you definitely have an addiction of some kind of sexual disorder. When I talk about addiction, I want to talk about that with this sexual inappropriate relationship. There is addiction is a chemical, as with mental health and substance abuse. There's a chemical imbalance in your brain, and no matter how much you continue to engage in this kind of unhealthy sexual behavior, you don't you'll never reach the euphoric feeling that you once felt when you originally start moving into pornography. Because we're going to say that it is evident that if this pastor was engaged in this kind of screen on screen observation, you're addicted to pornography. It would be clear, because you're watching screen on screen, which would tell me that you're addicted to pornography, which says to me that you have some addictions. Addictions just don't go away. There is some counseling that is needed to help you resolve that, and this is for the predator. There is some counseling that you want to engage in to help you understand your addiction, because addictions just don't go away. You have to work on them. All right, let's talk about it. All right, so okay, so individuals who engage in this, uh, it's like I said, deeply distressing to me when you have to report inappropriate behavior arises within a church setting involving church leaders. It's important to ensure that immediate safety and support is given to families. I was very surprised that I guess the pastor, when the husband approached him about the what the wife had said, he was rather taken back and became defensive as to why he wanted to fight the husband. Was to, I guess, exemplify he's a man's man. I don't know. The behavior is that's very violent behavior, that you want to fight another man over his wife, which says to me that you have anger issues, or you have low self-esteem, feeling of inadequacies, and you need to do this in order to uh, conquer someone else's wife when you yourself have a wife, but you feel because you're in leadership, you therefore, men pastors have a tendency, because they're in leadership, that they can be trusted, that sexual assaults don't take place, intersexual inappropriate relationships don't take place because a person is in leadership. Yes, they do. People get saved, but they oftentimes don't get delivered because they don't confess that they're struggling with whatever issues that they have. And I've counseled pastors that have been struggling with sexual addictions, same sex gender attractions, um, inappropriate relationships with other males, inappropriate relationship with other females that are in leadership. And unfortunately, until they get exposed, then they want to move to repentance. But unfortunately, they don't repent until they're exposed. Make sense? Yeah. So 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 when we talk about I want to talk about this, that for women who are victims of predatory behavior, it is important to understand that that is inappropriate. That no one in leadership should be violating you sexually and disrespecting your husband. That's inappropriate, and it's a violation of your boundaries, and you should report such behavior as this woman did to her husband, who in turn reported it to leadership and then sent me as a therapist this letter. With hopes, I'm sure, because this was this man's pastor who he trusted. So there was a broken trust between this family and their pastor, which, yes, is not good. All right. So individuals have people who are predators have issues with boundaries. They don't respect. They don't respect the boundaries of other people. So it's important to understand that. I'm sorry. That you want to respect the boundaries. If a person is married, there are some moral compasses and moral compasses that should guide our behavior in leadership and just in life. That you don't have a relationship with a married person because you're married and they're married. It's just a moral compass. But when you don't have a moral compass to guide your behavior, then you therefore solicit and elicit sexual predatory behaviors because you don't have a moral compass to guide your behavior. There should have been something in this pastor's a life that said this is inappropriate. It is inappropriate to have a sexual relationship or to have a sexual exploitation of another married person who is under your leadership. That's inappropriate. But this pastor choose to engage in this kind of inappropriate relationship with this married member of his church. Um, we talk about the emotional and psychological need um, of the predator. The predator seeks validation, affections, attention outside of appropriate relationships. So the predator, he seeks the attention from, perhaps his wife is not giving him the emotional attention that he needs. So therefore he seeks it, an inappropriate relation from someone else to fulfill his ego self. So you seek relationships from other females in the church. So you dress inappropriately. You wear tight shirts. You wear tight pants that show your genitalia. You want attention because there's something missing in you and you don't feel complete. So you want the attention. And perhaps you have low self esteem and other issues, and therefore you're seeking inappropriate relationships with the members of your church. And the title of this, please like and subscribe their channels. I'm just a guest. All right. Please like and subscribe their channel. All right. To what they're doing. All right. So narcissistic traits as well as a part of the predator. Uh, those with narcissism might feel entitled to pursue relationships because I'm the pastor. I can therefore assume, in his mind, perhaps in leadership, that it is okay for me to have this inappropriate relationship with a married woman because I am the pastor. I am a leader. Therefore, I'm entitled. So that is a narcissistic trait of a predator, that you feel you're entitled. You're entitled to have this relationship. Outside of their primary commitment, justifying their actions to meet their personal needs or to satisfy their ego. So that's what a narcissist does. So a person that has this kind of a narcissistic behavior, this kind of predatory behavior, is a narcissist. You feel it's okay to do that. You could be very, that also very, the predatory behavior is dissatisfaction in their marriage, into their relationship. I'm a marriage and family therapist. So because you're not sexually satisfied or because you're not emotionally satisfied, you seek outside relationships, whether it's through pornography or through going to a gay bar or going through having sex with a member of your church, within your church, uh, which is the most dangerous thing you can do, because as with this situation, this pastor had a relationship with a married member of the church, not realizing that the husband was going to tell the church, members of the church. All right. So, so the predator has this dissatisfaction with his primary relationships, feelings in his marriage, and it's not. So he seeks outside satisfaction, whether it's in pornography or it's with male on male interactions, whether it's female on female. There is something lacking within your marriage, your relationship, and that you're dissatisfied with. And instead of going to counseling and work through it with their wives or their husbands, they seek these relationships with other people and they become dysfunctional. My book talks about that, transitioning from dysfunctional family dynamics to healthy family functioning. How do you do that? You do that because you go to marriage counseling and you talk about the dysfunction in your marriage. All right. Also, there's history. Thank you. There's a history of boundary setting. You don't have boundaries. You don't set boundaries. So it's a little warm in here. So because you don't, we didn't turn the air on. Because you don't set boundaries, you didn't set boundaries. Uh, because you're a narcissist, you have no boundaries. So therefore, you think it's okay in order to have this inappropriate relationship with the member of your church. I'm going to talk about from this book. Please get this book. It will help you understand mental health from a Christian perspective, and help you understand how this. I just want to talk about how perhaps this. The psychological breakdown of perhaps this pastor's, they asked me to do this and I'm going to do that. Rejection sensitivity. The anger from the husband provoked the pastor to engage in a violent interaction with the husband because the wife rejected him. That's good. The wife rejected him, and so his angry because the wife rejected you. And so you have this anger, deep sense of rejection, indicated to you a failed sense of self-worth and feeling of inferiority. So when she rejected him, from the psychological, she rejected him and she exposed him to her husband. So that's why the violence, the pastor wanted to fight the husband, is because of the rejection.
I think it's just redirected anger.
Absolutely. Redirected anger, and that you rejected me. So I'm angry that I've been exposed. And I'm also angry because I didn't complete the deception, what I had going on. Make
Right.
sense?
It could be embarrassment as well. So it's like it's also a loss of ego, which is one of the most devastating things for narcissists since they're already so insecure.
Very true. Very true. They're already so. And so here's another one: displacing the anger. So, redirecting, as you talked about, redirecting his anger and frustration towards the husband, or towards the female. So now I'm going to fight you. I'm going to beat up your husband who's just protecting his wife.
Right.
Right.
Imagine being that mad about somebody else's wife not liking you when you already have a wife yourself also.
Right.
And being sick enough to do that in front of everybody where you have not only a moral
Right.
but an ethical obligation to not do things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes sense.
A different level of sickness.
It's a different level of dysfunction. This is the person who's over this predators in the pulpit, their assistant. She's getting her she's getting her insight into this with me. Family dynamics. So the relationship between his wife and himself was not sufficient, and he had this anger, and he didn't communicate that. So he had marital problems with his wife, and therefore he was seeking some kind of sexual perverted situations with somebody else's wife, because, and like you said, the sickness was that you're angry about somebody else's wife. You want to fight a husband about his wife.
You as a married man.
You as a married
man.
man.
Fight another married man
about his
their
wife
that they're married to.
That they're married to, and he's protecting and confronting you about an inappropriate sexual relationship through Zoom or what was it, Skype, where she's playing with her genitals and you're playing with yours. Okay, so that is just, yeah, that's the psychological breakdown with that. Absence of emotional support. So instead of this pastor counseling with the family and just going to get therapy himself, we're just going to dismiss you. We're going to fight you. We're going to dismiss you. We're not going to address it. Period. So
it's just deflecting.
Deflect. So it's just going to go away. No, it's not going away. That's why your issue is brought up on Predators in the Pulpit, because I received this email. All right, so the mental health issue is that this pastor could very well benefit from some psychotropic medication in addition to some psychological counseling to help him deal with his addiction, because therefore it's very much believed that if you're doing the Skype and this kind of kind of sexual thing through a screen, that you're definitely addicted to pornography. That's a given. 100%. So you therefore have real psychological issues, right? That needs to be addressed and to get some deliverance and some help. Mood stabilizer could help, as well as an antidepressant. Antipsychotic medication could help him deal with his addictions and to calming his brain. Understand that addiction is a chemical imbalance within his brain. And he thinks he can control it, but you can't, because it's compulsive. Addiction is a compulsivity. It controls you. You don't control the addiction. So you therefore would need to get some help to control the addiction, the chemical imbalance in your brain. And sometimes that takes medication, as well as understanding. We work through 12 steps and understand what triggers you to want to watch pornography, or what triggers you to want to have sex with somebody else's wife, and you're a pastor of a church. You have to really identify, get in touch with you to find out what is triggering you to act in this inappropriate relationship with the members of your church, or anyone if you're married. I mean, there should be a covenant between you and your wife. All right, so I talk about this in the book. All right, and I don't know if the pastor indicated that he had any guilt, because we didn't talk to him, so we don't know, because he refused to talk. He definitely wasn't open to counseling at that time, for me to counsel the family and to try to come to some resolution. This Tampa pastor did reject my, and I have the degrees, and he rejected the notion to, he rejected the notion for counseling, but also did meet with me. I did see him at an event, and he threatened to sue me because I was aware of the situation. I was just, as a therapist, trying to resolve this family situation that was brought to my attention. However, the pastor at that time declined any kind of psychological counseling, spiritual counseling, prayer, deliverance. He rejected all assistance for help, which uh, you still need help. Okay,
As a pastor, he knows what steps he needs to take, and he's openly admitting to not only you but everybody that knows about the
right.
situation that he is not interested.
You're not. He's not interested, right? So because he's not interested, that is probably why these pastors have now put him on Predators, brought his story to their platform of Predators in the Pulpit, because you're not interested in being healed, you're not interested in being delivered, you're not interested in dealing with your demons and your issues. And so as a result, these the people with Predators in the Pulpit have asked me to come on as their guest, and that's probably why he's being this case and this situation is being exposed now, because he did refuse uh, any kind of help.
When he reacts like that, to me, it looks like he's kind of accepting of his actions,
Right.
and it doesn't seem like an accepting as in I understand that this happened and I want to move forward.
Right.
It's more of a like, this is how I am, and you guys are gonna deal with it,
Right.
because I will take.
And I'm still going to stay in the pulpit,
right,
being a predator.
It's like he's doubling down.
Right.
Everybody's like, you're a predator. This is wrong. This is horrible, and he's like, I don't care.
I don't care. Right. So now that's why you're
That's
on
a whole different level too.
a level of dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you're on Predators in the Pulpit, because you have not chosen to take responsibility for what you've done to harm other families. It's not just you, it's other family members. This family has been traumatized by this that could have led to a divorce. Other family members, other husbands and wives have been traumatized by the dysfunctional of your addiction, because it is an addiction. And so as a result of that, that's why this case was brought to me, and they asked me to analyze it. Thank you for your people reaching out to me, friend. And so but we just wanted to really talk about this with Predators in the Pulpit, and understanding mental health from a Christian therapeutic perspective. Please like and subscribe. I'm just a guest on their show, but this book will help you understand mental health from a Christian perspective and a therapeutic perspective. Transition from dysfunctional family dynamics to healthy family function. This book is it just came out on Amazon. It's available on Kindle. It will help you. I am Dr. Reba. I am a therapist. I'm a guest, and I'm just honored to be a guest. But I do say this to those who are victims of Predators in the Pulpit. I do encourage you to reach out to someone to talk about this, to tell someone in leadership what is happening to you, document what has occurred, because oftentimes predators they will deflect, they will blame you as a victim, they will discredit you, it's your fault, they will blame you. But if you are a victim of a predator, if you've been groomed by a predator, it is important for you to share your truth of what happened to you. It doesn't matter if people believe you or not, but it's your truth. And you have a responsibility as a victim of a predator in order to share with your husband, share with your church, share with a therapist. If it's illegal, you share with law enforcement. But it is important for you to share your truth about what happened to you, because your truth is true for you. I'm Dr. Reba Haley, and thank you for watching Predators in the Pulpit.